All right, there we are. It's your old pal Emac coming to you with one fast Eddie Fair. We're going early, we're going live, tweaking on the fly here. But hey, that's what's important is we're on air. We are brought to you today by SuperDraft. We will be talking about them momentarily. But in the meantime, Eddie, we've got all sorts of news going on. We've got a couple suspensions here with Karl Anthony Towns and with Joel Embiid. That's having ripple effects. We've got a couple injuries here and there. I'm just going to turn you loose here. So feel free to hit it from the top and then we can do a little meandering.
Just go.
Just go.
Just go.
That's code for I'm trying to fix all this other stuff
Oh,
behind
okay.
the scenes.
I was like nothing like some direction. Just talk.
Vamp for me. Come on. You do that to us all the
Oh no,
time.
no. I try not to go right from the gate because usually you people hit me with who's your number one overall play today, which has generally gone pretty well, or whatever. But I don't like to do it 10 seconds into the show, which is nice that the host tends to vamp and sell stuff, and we talk about pierogies and snow and stuff, and then most of the people have gotten into the show by 3 minutes in, and then it makes sense. Um, as expected by many people, counting I'm sure you and me and most people, Draymond Green was unlikely to play today. They talked about managing his minutes. He has a sprained finger on his non-shooting hand, I think it is, but played more yesterday than I think we expected him to, and on the back-to-back. They're going to give him the rest, and Deangelo Russell has now popped up as questionable, which is very interesting regarding if he plays or not. If he plays, he goes from a pretty expensive, was still going to be fairly chalky play to, I wonder what we get the ownership down to. Like that news popped a while ago, and there are a number of brilliant shooting guard options at all varieties. Both point guard and shooting guard are replete with great plays. This is an amazing slate for 7 games. And if it was the 8 gamer, if it had the very juicy Nerlens Noel led Pelicans Thunder game at 5 o'clock, this would actually be like an all time great slate for the number of plays we like, which isn't surprising with all the value that is freed up with Karl Anthony Towns and Joel Embiid taking a break after their kerfuffle. Um, but yeah, so we end up in this interesting situation with the Golden State game. We're now trying to reasonably project, based on what time we get the D'Angelo Russell news, how owned he's going to be if he's in. Obviously, I'm referring to they're the lone 8:30 game. We have 7 games on this slate, but 5 of them go by 8. They go at 8:30, and then we have the late game at 10 p.m. between Philadelphia and Portland, which itself is really interesting as far as process issues and trying to figure out how to handle things. Like there is a ton of great value today, more of it at the bigs, but plenty when you get into now even a potentially even greater Jordan Poole performance. If D Russ is out, someone has to shoot the ball, and me actually liking Damian Lee a lot now if D'Angelo Russell is going to be out. But if you look in that late game, there's a chance that Portland will be without Hassan Whiteside, which would be unique in that they would have 4 players on their injury report, which would be 3.75 centers, because the 4 guys they would have out would be Yusuf Nurkic, Pau Gasol, Hassan Whiteside, and Zach Collins, who's more of a center than a 4, but is getting a start at the 4. But I think 5 is a slightly better position for him. But 3.5 centers and no one else on the injury report on the entire team. That's pretty hard to do. It's also a little bit unlucky, but you would have to see some fairly impressive minutes out of Scalabrine. Have to is actually a bit too strong. Terry Stotts is very unique with his ability to run guys out in multiple positions, and you would see some really weird stuff we saw in the playoffs, last year, where you had, Rodney Hood at center for 2 minutes here and there, and some really odd things going on. So maybe not, but I'd give about a 98% chance that outside of massive blowout, and maybe even in that, uh, and outside of foul trouble, you could get 30 plus minutes of Scalabrine. Now, you don't need to plan for super duper scal time, because there is so much other value at the bigs. At just the Minnesota guys takes you a long way. But if you do, it's interesting because, again, that's the only late game. So you need to either leave salary open more than his 3,000 so that you have a palatable 3,500, 3,400, 3,600. You go into Tolliver's 34, I think, or set up a double swap. So, for example, in the DK lineup, I'm tinkering with the bottom 2 spots right now, read Tobias Harris and Scalabrine. And in the event that Tobias that Whiteside is going to play, you can pretty easily pivot that into Al Horford and Anthony Tolliver, which I would have projected less, but would be a way of saving yourself from that situation. So you have to sort of plan into that due to some of the nuances of the slate. And it's not that I think Scal at that point, if he starts and Whiteside is out, would probably be the best value play on the slate, but not by a ton. So you don't have to plan that way, but it's definitely something to keep an eye on as we get towards 10 o'clock. So that's just one little nuance I was looking at as we got going. Have you fixed things?
Yes, I think we are mostly ready here. So
Okay.
that is very helpful now. Thank you. I appreciate that. Now I'm just looking for a couple things, but a little more relaxed now that people can get on in here. We, of course, will get some news trickling in throughout. And yeah, there was just a boatload of injury moving parts here. So with regards to starting to build your lineup, I think culling down the player pool, probably the easiest way to do it is to start in on that. But if you are one for mass multi-entry or making a lot of changes, it's going to be just a little tricky still with the Whiteside, Deangelo Russell, etc. Now, don't know that we'll get those, but we can.
Derrick Rose too is the one that we will get during this show, and that's going to be very instructive because Derrick Rose is questionable, and they're without Reggie Jackson, and Tim Frazier is questionable.
Langston Galloway, come on down.
Langston Galloway, Luke Kennard, Bruce Brown has played some point guard in the past and might start and play 40 minutes at the relative point for this. So that's the really interesting news that almost certainly is going to facilitate another rankings update. Referring to the rankings real quick, I do want to mention that you were mentioning building a GPP pool. Of the many things hopefully you can do with my rankings, that is literally a list of every player I would have one share of if I was building 150 GPP lineups. So that is my player pool. Go forth and do with it what you will. But if you're like, God, I'm having trouble building a player pool, it's using the DraftKings CSV modified, so you can literally pull directly from that and be like, here are my players.
All right, that would be the free today Fast Eddie Fair player
Right.
pool. Now we had a little. You can either get to them. They were able to fix it for me on the back end. So if you go to the usual drop down, you can get there for those of you that know how to navigate. But if you're brand new, I just threw them in an article and put it as soon as Eddie posted them. Put that on the front page, and I've dropped that link in. We're tweeting that link out. We've got our social media guys on that, so we've got you covered. You know, it's a special occasion. It's the post trick or treat from one Fast Eddie Fear here.
Yep.
All right. Let's. You want to just kind of hit highlights by each game and then hopefully go relatively quickly, or do you want to bounce around the questions? What would you like to do?
We'll do game by game real quick. I'll start with a fun question for you. I have 3 players projected for 55 or more fantasy points tonight on DraftKings. Name them for me. 2 are going to be kind of easy.
Drummond.
Yep. Barely. He's closer, but yeah, he gets over.
Giannis.
That's right. Yeah, closer to 60. Yep.
And you're going to be tricky with this one. I would lean towards Ben Simmons.
Bradley Beal.
Oh, hey, that's who I used as your cover boy on the free article.
Oh, did you? Well, look at that. We're in mind meld here, you and I.
He's a AA rated on Eddie's rankings right now.
You should be a AA rank. It's a superb matchup for him. I gave him, I think, 2 shout outs in my last show, saying that the matchup isn't going to get any better than this, and he has taken infinite shots. He has taken 20 to 25 shots every game this year. He is the straw that stirs the drink. The matchup is brilliant for him. Last year, even Sans Wall played against the Timberwolves twice and had a 50-something and a 60-something in those 2 games, if memory serves, which, again, small sample size doesn't mean a hell of a lot, but the ceiling is absolutely there. The price is high. There are a million other options tonight, and I expect him to just do a ton tonight. I have him at 56.5 fantasy points, which I have a feeling is well higher than anyone else. But I'm a massive fan of Bradley Beal tonight, especially at where we expect him to be owned. So he is my relative to the field stand-up guy that I'm most excited to run out there.
I like that. That one is solid. I had said I'm rolling about 20%. I know we're gonna say game stacks, and you're gonna say there's not enough games to do it, but about 20% of my lineups will have 5 guys from that game. And then I'm thinking about 15 to 20% of my lineups will have 5 guys from the night game. and then the rest I will be building accordingly. So I'm taking a little bit more of a stand than I normally do. My reasoning, Eddie, is pretty much Bradley Beal. I think people are forgetting that side of the game as they look at hey, I can get 4 great priced Minnesota guys into my lineup, and then all of a sudden they've forgotten about Washington. So that's my secret hope there.
Yeah, and it's Beal hasn't shot as well as he normally could. One of those games was I think 7 for 25. Another one he was 7 for 20 or something. This is an outstanding matchup for someone who does everything that he does. There's some natural. First of all, I never would have said that there's not enough games to stack. I might have said there's too many games to stack. I say that frequently because game stacking is inversely proportionally beneficial, all else being equal to the number of games in the slate. 12 games, you really don't want to stack games.
Right.
3 or 4 makes a lot of sense. But there are some brilliant games to target tonight. It's also worth pointing out that tonight is interesting in that you have 6 games with roughly the same pace. I think every game on the slate is 221 to 228, except for the Orlando game, which is $1.99 and change.
I didn't think we allowed them below 200 anymore.
It is a uniquely poor matchup, and it's interesting because I went back today and actually watched a fair bit of video from the 2 times those teams got together last year. And unlike this year had a lot of moving parts, obviously, with trades and free agency and rookies and somewhat, but those are 2 teams that are really similar to what they were last year. Like both Denver and Orlando fairly well stood pat. And it wasn't, we'll start there because that's a fairly early game anyway. If you were to ask me to take someone from this game, my first 2 shots, if I had to, would be Jamal Murray and Paul Millsap. Both from the Nuggets would be the guys I would have some interest in. As I elucidated a bit on the last show when talking about Paul Millsap, due to the nature of his game and his age and the way they deploy other guys, you can expect to see more of him in slower, more grinded out kind of games, as opposed to games that are really running, and we've seen that. He's literally played 5 games this year. There were 2 games that were on the slower side, and he was very productive in those 2 games and got a lot more time. There were 3 games where it gets running, and he magically turns into Jeremy Grant in a big hurry. This game is a bit of a slog, and his price has dropped all the way down to $4,600. I still don't think he quite got up to an A in GPPs, but he was around that BA line. That is a cheap enough price, and if you expect him to play at least into the high 20s in minutes, he's a productive enough guy that if you expect Paul Millsap to be basically unowned, and he's going to be pretty low owned because he just looks like he's all the hell over the place, he or Jamal Murray would be the places I would look. The reason to look at Jamal Murray extends by a few things, but taking a complicated subject and boiling it down into a 20-second soundbite, the Orlando front court defense is wonderful between Vooch and Aaron Gordon and John Isaac, all of whom are exceptional defenders in more than one way. The court defense leads something to be desired. It's not bad by any means, but it is well worse. So if I'm due to a short split or just the nature of a question, forcing taking guys against the Magic, I'm going to land on the backcourt a lot relative to the front court, and just the way the team is composed, that'd give you a little bit of interest in Gary Harris. But a lot of FanDuel where he's underpriced, cheaper, I think, on FanDuel dollar. Just project better plays as far as what we expect to get out of them. But everyone in this game should be really really low owned, including Jamal Murray. And had come to think of it, I think a 30-pointer against Orlando last year. Now that memory, and I'm not surprised at all. That is the way this is going to function a lot of times. So rankings on DK for GPPs most interesting would probably be Millsap and then Murray, but I'd have them very close after that. If you made me fire a bullet, it would be at Gary Harris. Again, Barton is going to be out again. Craig likely picks up the most time there. I don't think I'm super excited to go back to the Porter experiment again, but obviously something you can try if so inclined. My mic is no bueno right now.
No, it's
Was it you?
You're okay. You're lagging a little bit, and I made sure I was plugged into the router as well, so we should be okay. Your video's a little choppy, but that seems to have tweaked your mic accordingly, so you're better now.
Am I sure? Someone in chat give me if you have a moment or two, confirm that the audio is coming in okay, because I believe all my things are. I'm experiencing no issues on this end. So you're hosting, so maybe it's either our utility or something on your end right now.
Yeah, your video's coming in clearer now. So maybe it was just a hiccup there. So
Interesting. But yeah, Orlando, you make me take a player. I would take John Isaac, who is appropriately priced, but always due to his ability to fill up the box score, and he hasn't done it in a little while. Can pick up a pile of defensive stats, and the pace of the game less of a issue for his production than other guys who are a little more tied to it. So if you made me play someone on the Orlando Magic, I would run him out, or a very cheap Markelle Fultz who closes games and is cheap enough that I could take a shot at it. But definitely not a game if you have no one I'm overly concerned with that.
all right, so they say you're good now. So
Uh,
just chat, just let us know if it goes a little bit wonky. In the meantime, while Eddie's getting his breath here, I'm going to mention our sponsor for tonight's show. That is One Super Draft. So I'm going to drop their link into the chat. If you come in on this link, it helps us out tremendously, but it also helps you out because if you deposit $100, they will give you $20 available in immediate cash, super draft cash to you. So this is now the future of daily fantasy sports. They would like us to know that. They want you to experience super draft's exclusive game mode multiplier. Say goodbye to those pesky salary restrictions and hello to lineup freedom. Use your fantasy sports knowledge to draft any player you want and build your very own dream team. There are countless lineup possibilities that let you experience daily fantasy sports the way you want to. Superdraft offers contests for MLB, NFL, NBA, NHL, and PGA so you can enjoy the very best DFS all year round. Signed up today using the promo code OSMO coming in on that link I dropped in there and claim your free $20 in super cash with your first deposit of $100 or more. You can also download their app in the App Store or play on superdraft.io. Superdraft, no limits, more winning. How was that, Eddie? Good.
I liked it. I was
They had some
intrigued.
well-written copy. Not everybody gives us good copy, so I got to make it up. But that one was
Yeah,
good.
that was strong. All right, let's get to work.
All right, next game you hit on Denver and Orlando. Let's talk Brooklyn and Detroit. An excellent matchup here for one Andre Drummond. We got to see quite a bit of time there for Jarrett Allen. Last night, I believe he topped 1 or 32 minutes. DeAndre Jordan, as expected, on the short end. Sometimes those guys are going to nearly split the 48 minutes. Sometimes it's going to land heavily one way or the other. I went to Jarrett Allen's side last night. How are you feeling about Allen going against Andre Drummond? And it feels like Andre Drummond is playing every other day, Eddie.
Yeah, he's I don't know if he and I are still perfectly. No, I missed a game of his finally. There was a minute that he played every day I had a show and vice versa. I think that's now gotten aside. Um, I don't have a terrible amount of interest in the net centers. As you mentioned, there's the inherent uncertainty of who the heck is going to get enough time today. And again, it's a slate where there are 4 or 5 really good, cheap value, big plays. It just seems that you're going to end up spending, $4,500, $5,000 for one of those guys with no real safety. Like, could you get the ceiling game out of DeAndre Jordan? I would take Jarrett Allen if I had to take one of them, and I think my rankings have the. I do think he gets more time. You are obviously Jarrett Allen being younger than DeAndre Jordan, so a little more likely that DeAndre Jordan's going to take the minutes shave as time goes on. Both these teams on the second of a 3 and 4. They both played yesterday. They both play Monday. So for that reason, if you take a net center in general, I'm going to like Jarrett Allen a little bit more for who he is and his ceiling on the basketball court. But specifically tonight, I believe I have Jarrett Allen as a C in cash, which might even be a little bit high, and a B in tournaments. I think I have DeAndre Jordan as a D and a C. So if you wanted to go to a center on this team, yeah, I would say Jarrett Allen, but again, in one lineup, I don't think there's much chance I would get there. I still ranked Kyrie at a double A. I really like this spot for him, whether or not Derrick Rose plays or not. They're not going to have anybody out there who can guard him. They really weren't going to anyway, because it wasn't like Reggie Jackson was going to hold down the fort super well on the defensive end of the court. But I like Kyrie a lot. I said, a week ago that I would not be shocked if Kyrie averages 50 fantasy points a game through the end of November. And he's right about on it right now. A couple poor shooting games. All the usage in the world just takes over in the fourth quarter. So sure, maybe the game doesn't stay close. Any number of things can go wrong. 9,300, the prices started to come up. He's One of a few guys at the beginning of the year I talked about a lot just because the price was not commensurate with his new role, or Andre Drummond, his price wasn't commensurate with his role, sans Blake Griffin, and so on. But yeah, Kyrie Irving, probably the guy I'm most excited to get in there. I probably prefer spending $400 on Bradley Beal, but that's, I still have a strong, Kyrie Irving is my Cheryl Teagues, but Bradley Beal is my Christy Brinkley. So there's just a tiering thing. I love them both quite a bit and think about them a lot when I'm alone. But yeah, so big fan of finding a way to get Kyrie into your lineup. That being said, expensive point guard is a position replete with perfectly reasonable options tonight, with Deangelo Russell will throw into this conversation. Booker, I think, is actually point guard eligible if you get there. Beal, who I previously alluded to, Kyrie, Lillard, Ben Simmons. So there's a lot of ways that even, Jamal Murray, who I mentioned, is a GPP play. Kyle Lowry, who is close to being appropriately priced now. We're almost there. And it's the first day I've been on a show with him this year where I've been super excited because, again, Kyle Lowry without Kawhi Leonard has been a thing for quite a while, and now it's every day as opposed to every third day, but it's still pretty darn exciting. But so when he was 6 and change, low sevens, he's up to 8,100 now, and what has historically been a fairly difficult matchup for him, both individually with Bledsoe, who will get the assignment, and with the team. So I still like him. I still have him for 40 fantasy points, which is definitely under his average this year. You can certainly play Kyle Lowry. So all this comes around to getting back and talking about Kyrie Irving. When I say I love these guys, it's not like I would get over 25, 28% of them simply because there's so many quality options at the position and plenty of nice spend down options at the position. So I'd be over the field on the guys I'm mentioning, though. So yeah.
All right. Well, I now understand what Arnold Schwarzenegger said when he said, "Now I know why you cry." The news is coming in fast and furious, Eddie. We now know that Tim Frazier and Derrick Rose are out. Hassan Whiteside out.
Oh, jeez.
Assuming we knew that Draymond was going to be officially out, right? We did know that, right?
We knew that 20 minutes ago. Or
okay.
I mean,
Okay.
We didn't know that all day,
catching up here. I'm catching up.
That was on the 5:30 injury report. So
perfect.
That came out 40 minutes ago or so.
All right, so no Frazier, no Rose. Let me get that game up. Every time I update our Osmo stuff into my spreadsheet, we get more news, so it becomes outdated. So I'm not quite ready to start citing that just yet. So
I'm going to do some more rankings.
All right, so while you are getting that up, reminder, we do actually have Super Draft projections now for those of you that were wondering. I see that as a tab here for NBA, assuming we have it for our other stuff. Wow. So circling back here to the Detroit side of things, that's really got to put. Why is my head hurting? Did they? Oh, never mind. I'm having flashbacks to last night's podcast. I'm saying, wait, Spencer Dinwiddie, didn't he just play Detroit? So Drummond becomes, I don't know, even better if possible. We might see all of the touches running through him. That doesn't necessarily guarantee more assists, but 5, 6 definitely in play. Now that we know that,
and it's important to also specifically point out that we are. Tim Frazier being in might have actually been more helpful for him. We are worried a little more about them getting skunked a little bit now. They are at home, but he is going to be out there a lot with guys who don't tend to be super interesting on the offensive side of the court. Like there's going to be a lot of Tony Snell now. There's going to be a lot of Bruce Brown Jr. now. But I new rankings will be in about 30 seconds. I'm upgrading stuff. But sans Derrick Rose, most importantly, this team now needs to pick up a lot of shots, especially off that second unit. But I'm now up to 5 A's on the Pistons and GPPs, being Drummond, Kennard, Markieff Morris, who is already going to be pretty popular now at $4,100, bears a lot of merit. Langston Galloway got up to an A in GPPs now because I think I have him projected right now for 29 minutes. He's $3,600. I don't expect the ownership to be crazy, especially if we don't hear about him starting, which I think is probably going to happen until like 6:45 or so. So I like that a lot. And Bruce Brown Jr. makes it up to an A in GPPs because they're going to run him out there a pile of times. So those being the Pistons, I would have a lot of interest in. Probably my relative order of interest is just Drummond at this point. I think you can load him in there. It changes the Drummond Jokic question quite a bit, but You would need an even greater ownership differential to justify your Jokic ownership stands. But Luke Kennard at $5,000 isn't get glossed over, and guy has a 45 point upside. So $5,000 doesn't feel great for Luke Kennard in a world of $3,800 Jordan Poole, but there's a large ceiling for him in this situation. But now you're building a non-Andre Drummond lineup. That needs a strong word. I would really like to find a way to sneak in one of these value guys and see if he gets there.
All right. Let me see. Let me know when you have your deal posted there, and I'll get that article updated as well, since we have some people chasing it down that way. Anything else from this game? And we'll probably circle back, of course, at some point, because we are wont to do that. But are we ready to talk Toronto and Milwaukee?
Your connection, obviously, you can't read around in the midst of the show, but attempt to speak clearly and elucidate all remote stuff.
We might be losing Eddie here, but we will see. Hopefully that will catch back.
I can hear you fine. Hear me.
You're a little laggy, but you're coming back again.
My internet shows 100%. I'm not sure if it's maybe the stream utility.
It could be because you're also frozen on Restream right now, so that could be the issue. But go ahead and keep talking if possible.
It's unfortunate timing on all this.
Oh, it knows. It definitely knows.
All right, well, query me with a question. Let's continue to move on. Rankings will be in as soon as I can physically enter them.
All right, Toronto and Milwaukee. We do have Pascal Siakam still available at small forward on FanDuel. That seems like a pretty good deal. Reasonably priced, sort of getting lost in the shuffle here with all of these moving parts. How are you feeling about Toronto? Siakam, you mentioned a little bit about Kyle Lowry, not quite as excited. Anybody else outside of that duo?
I'm fine playing Lowry again. Again, I'm projected for just under 40 fantasy points. The price now barely over 8K on both sites. Still feels just fine. He's been doing a lot for this team. If you watch any of the video or go back and look at the game logs, not surprising with Kawhi not around. He and Pascal are really going to be the guys who make the dream work for this team. Obviously, Pascal is advantaged by being slightly better priced and at a much better position on FanDuel, where that small forward position is not so terrible today, but frequently the toughest one to fill out with any degree of confidence. Not a team I'm super interested in just because just the game environment not quite as appealing as some of these other ones, and the prices on guys, while fair, are fair, and some of the others are legitimately completely busted in your format. So I'd be absolutely fine with any amount of Lowry. I'd be fine with any amount of Siakam. I guess any amount is a stretch. I'd be fine having 10, 20% Lowry or Siakam. I'd probably prefer Siakam. It'd be my first priority here. But we have a long history of watching these two teams play, and it isn't an environment where you tend to get massive ceiling games out of anyone on either side. Obviously, there's the chance that Giannis drops a 70 burger tonight. There's money to spend with all the value, so even if he puts up 57, he's going to end up being just fine for that price. So I'd prioritize Drummond, but I have AA ranking on Antetokounmpo, and that's absolutely fine to go. I like Eric Bledsoe a lot. His minutes have been limited by a disparity of other things, but it wouldn't surprise me to see that continue to press up till he is repeatedly getting over 30 minutes. $5,900 is a very nice price tag. From a raw point standpoint, I would prefer Jeff Teague as far as what I expect out of him, but Bledsoe is certainly the other guy I would be super interested in looking at there. Past that, Middleton or Brook Lopez, tolerable to get a little bit of in tournaments. But that's about it for me. Not looking to take my guesses on the Toronto front court, and no one else there a priority in a single lineup.
All right, just dropped the link in the chat. We are doing the Fred Van Elite Fan Club contest. It's 75 people must fill to run, just $1. Top 15 are paid out. This is on DK. Go to my pinned tweet or the tweet in the chat. You can join the Awesemo DK League. That will get you access to it. If you win and have an Awesemo avatar, reach out to me on Twitter, and I'll get you those 30 free days of Awesemo Premium. Yes, I am the only one required to play Mr. Van Vliet. You guys don't have to. I did take second in the last contest, though, with him. Milwaukee's side, the Bledsoe versus Jeff Teague question, they are similarly priced across most of the sites.
Yeah.
Landing on one or the other for tournaments. Where are you, Eddie?
Well, what do we have their current ownership? Someone suggested before that we had Bledsoe projected higher, which would make it Teague by a walk for me. I have Jeff Teague projected about 5 fantasy points higher. I'm a big Jeff Teague fan tonight. The matchup is absolutely wonderful for him. We just saw what the Rockets could do in this situation, for example, and the extra usage and touches without Towns around, who this team was centering on as far as their offensive centerpiece. He's just too cheap. It's still Jeff Teague. He finds a way to disappear, but him under 6K, as far as a points per dollar standpoint, he does very well against any of Lowry or Jamal Murray or even Eric Bledsoe, who I like Eric Bledsoe fine in tournaments, but he'd need to be half owned Teague for me to feel that that's a wise pivot.
It's 17-12 Teague, so
Yeah,
that's DK, so it's not there for you.
Yeah, play Teague. It's just not. There's just not enough there for me. I really like Jeff Teague tonight. I thought Jeff Teague was going to be in the high 20s in ownership, and Eric Bledsoe would be around 10, and then you're having an interesting conversation. But Teague at 17 is just too little. Actually, I don't know who they think is going to successfully guard him. He's going to see a lot of Brad Beal. But yeah, that's Teague for me by quite a margin now.
All right. Any looking overall at the top? Would you? So two questions. One from Premium Chat. Would you play Teague and Bledsoe over Rozier on FanDuel?
In cash, I would. You're saving a very relevant amount of money, and I have them all projected similarly. Figuring out who's going to put together someone should have a very decent game for the Charlotte team against running into basically a JV squad there. I'm absolutely fine with Bledsoe. Excuse me. I'm absolutely fine going with really any of those three guys in tournaments, but you do end up having uh, Teague project by far the best of them. Then even after that, at price, I would go to Bledsoe. So I'm fine getting away from Scary Terry, if you will. But
All right. How do you rank Antetokounmpo against those other guys at the top? Now that we've had a little bit of baseline analysis from you here.
I'd still prefer Drummond as my overall spend up. Due to their ownership disparity, I would still prefer Bradley Beal. Even without the ownership disparity, I'm as a better points per dollar play there, and he's going to be half owned, Giannis. So yeah, I'll play 15 to 20% Beal instead of 35% Antetokounmpo most times in my lineup. Drummond is scheduled to be that popular, but I feel very safe. And when you look at a lot of these comparisons tonight, it's also just the bust likelihood, which is another feature we've had here on the site. It's really hard for Andre Drummond to bust. Maybe today's the first day in several years that they limit him on the back end of back-to-backs. I don't think it's very likely, but I guess that could happen. Maybe someone else on Washington picks up. But one of the reasons I'm a much bigger fan of, even at their prices, Bradley Beal than, say, Devin Booker, is I feel like Devin Booker's usage is much more contingent on a couple other things and how the defense aligns. Those other guys, I just don't know how they get away from carrying the football the whole game, if you will.
All right. Thank you to Don't Embiid My Status. He is letting us know that Craig is starting for Denver. Does that tweak anything as we continue marching through our player pool?
Nope. That's what was expected, and he got ranked as, I think, a D in cash and a C in GPPs. He probably plays 25 minutes. He himself doesn't carry a ton of upside, and again, what's a very difficult matchup. But better for the other guys on that team. Makes Jamal Murray, I hear, better than if they had randomly started Malik Beasley at the 3, for example.
All right. Let's hit on Phoenix and Memphis. This one a little bit exciting. Memphis playing at nearly the fastest pace in the league. Eddie, after 5 years of basically being bottom 3, they've revamped their roster, and no more plodding, no more grit and grind. On the other side, we've got Phoenix. You've got Devin Booker, we've got Kelly Oubre, we've got a rotating cast of bigs. What do you want to look to from this game with the 221.5 over-under? Phoenix favored by a bucket on the road. There is some value here. Will this be the forgotten plays since we have all these shiny objects flying in over the last 30 minutes?
I think so. There's a lot to talk about here. Did we get Brandon Clark news? I thought I might have heard you allude to it, but
I believe we're still waiting on him, but let me
yeah,
go
I'd be surprised if we'd have heard anything specifically. Yeah, weird to see weird day in NBA history where the Suns are getting a pace up spot against the Grizzlies. That's not how it's been for those two teams in many, many, many years. But you can look at there's 3 guys I think I ranked with A's and GPPs on Memphis and 5 on Phoenix. A lot of guys carrying upside here. Now, again, compared to say Beal and Drummond, exactly how the usage shakes out and how these guys end up distributing the ball amongst themselves is a little bit more up in the air, but you're going to get some ceiling performances out of these games. It's difficult to know where to rank them. Starting with Jonas Valanciunas, minutes have increased every game. Production has been excellent. He's always been a fantasy beast. It's a matchup we really like, especially on FanDuel. The price is really tolerable. It would come down to an ownership question. I haven't had time to check that yet, but probably my favorite guy would be Valanciunas by just a hair over Ja Morant. Haven't gotten as many minutes out of Morant as maybe some people would have wanted, but showed us his ceiling in one game where he very nearly dropped 50. And again, going up in a matchup that's really been abused by any number of guards. We had a 35 real point performance against this backcourt. We had 37. I think that was Zach LaVine. You can catch a very real ceiling out of Ja Morant. So both those guys, bees in cash, due to the minutes limitation and the need to hit some sort of ceiling out of Valanciunas. And Ja Morant just being inconsistent as most rookies will be at this stage in their career. But big fan of getting one of those guys in your lineup. Past that, you need things to work your way. Maybe today in a great matchup is the spot that Bill Brooks gets it all right and plays 30 minutes and has X points, but it's really hard to click that button over, say, Jordan Poole for less money or even Damian Lee for less money at this point. Jaren Jackson Jr. always carries the ceiling, but always carries a floor with him as well. He's carrying around, a full half of a building there. He's locked in to C in cash and an A in tournaments basically every day of the year. But that A is a big A in this matchup. I like those 2 guys specifically on Memphis quite a bit. And I like a lot on Phoenix. Phoenix really homogenized rankings. I didn't realize this. Their 5 starters are ranked with B's in cash and A's and GPPs. Both Booker and Oubre get very close to A's in cash. And even the fact, like, I might make that change now. There are plenty of times that there are plays I really like who don't manage to get an A in cash because I find them slightly worse than other plays at the same position / price range. So probably Deangelo Russell moving to questionable would actually make Devin Booker an AA now. I like him a lot. Carries a massive upside. Everybody knows this. And again, pace up spot for them against a team that has shown some real defensive inefficiencies in the backcourt. So Devin Booker at 8,300, love. Kelly Oubre doing a little bit of everything. Your guy, my guy, our guy. Still fine with him at that price. Better again on FanDuel at price and position, but you can certainly get there. But B's and A's for all those guys. And then, Rubio, Aaron Baines, who got there certainly on Thursday. Really strong matchup spot for him as well. So all the way down to Saric, I have all these starters as playable in cash. B basically means if he's in your cash lineup, that's fine. He wouldn't make it in my first one. I'm not targeting him. But if he's in your cash lineup, good to go. A's and GPs where they can all get on top of their prices. And these are 5 guys who have really done it this year to one extent or another where you can get ceiling games out of them. So again, really happy if I manage to find a piece of Phoenix in my lineups.
No, that definitely makes a lot of sense. Continuing to truck along here, let's get to Minnesota and Washington. You had covered this from slightly different angles, but now we can do it all together at once. Who do you think is the most disappointing play in this game? For me, it will probably be Andrew Wiggins.
It's hard to, I mean, when you say disappointment and Andrew Wiggins in the same sentence, it just feels right.
Yeah, that's cherry picking, but there we are.
Yeah. Sorry, checking with something. There's a little bit of you talk about them for a second. I'm going to fix something with the rankings that apparently went askew again.
Absolutely. So kind of looking here on the Minnesota side, it is a very nice matchup here going against Washington. Let me get over to my cash game building block article because I did call out Jeff Teague as a good value. So the Wizards are hemorrhaging points. They are allowing 111.9 per 100 possessions. What that means is they are the third worst at defensive efficiency. They still play relatively fast, so it means they give up a lot of points. That's something that we want to look to for Minnesota. I think that Teague is probably my favorite, followed by Robert Covington. I think Andrew Wiggins is absolutely in play. Helps take care of that pesky small forward shooting guard spot on DraftKings, though we do have a lot more things opening up at this point. But he would be the one guy I'm worried about. I did mention earlier that I'm looking to roll about 20% of my lineups with 5 guys from this game. Wiggins does make the cut. From the Minnesota side, the guy who's going to be somewhat intriguing, I think, is going to be Jordan Bell. How many minutes is he going to play? What sort of action is he going to get? That is one of our main questions here. If I look to him, I'm guessing 18 to 21 minutes would be about where I think he's going to land. Can he get stuff done in that amount of time? Sure. He's also a foul magnet, but who's he going to foul on the Wizards? Because how scary is Thomas Bryant, really?
It's a little bit scary. I mean, we're just after Halloween, but I'm not entirely disinclined there. But yeah, yeah, that's about what I have. I do think Noah Vonleh gets a start here. I don't know if they've specifically come out and said that yet. We've had 3 times in the last week alone where someone got injured, and the guy who I would have expected to start didn't come in, and they just moved in another guy to keep the second unit the same. That's what I expect to see here, where we have Noah Vonleh get the start, Jordan Bell back him up and Covington up, play some 4 and some 5. I have 29 minutes for Vonleh, which I think has me on the upside for other people's projections, and I think I have 20 for Jordan Bell. I think they're both fine to play. They're both superlative plays on FanDuel, where they're power forwards and minimum price or minimum price plus 100 for Noah. By any raw point sensibility, it's Noah Vonleh. But if you're not playing Noah Vonleh, who's going to be one of the more popular plays tonight, Jordan Bell is the most immediate and noticeable leverage move. Past that, yeah, I'm a fan really of just about everyone we can expect to see time on this Minnesota team. I think Jake Layman is still probable, but he should get out there and play. He started the second half in the last game, which is interesting, which gives us a little bit of pause when it comes to Treveon Graham. But specifically, Bell, even Shabazz Napier, who probably plays 18 to 20 minutes, uh, pretty compelling. I have to have him a decent bit behind Jordan Poole at this point, at basically same price and position. But Vonleh, Covington, Teague, Wiggins all make a lot of sense for me. Teague the most so of them. I have him projected within a point of Andrew Wiggins. He's $1,200 less. Teague at his ownership, I understand people's concern, but I mean, we just watched the Rockets put up 159 in regulation against this team. Their transition defense is woefully bad right now. That was humorous when someone asked Scott Brooks, "What are you going to do about your defensive transition?" He said, "Well, not playing the Rockets will help." So that was a good point. But yeah, for me, all stars are probably in order of preference is Teague, Vonleh, Covington, Wiggins, the Bell, Napier. I think would be the order in which. But I do think if I wanted to feel not sick about stacking 5 guys from a game on a loaded 7-game slate, this is certainly a game and an environment in which to do it. So I don't hate what you're doing. Again, I think game stacking in NBA is less popular for obvious and appropriate reasons. But on a great slate, it obviously costs you. Whenever you stack a game, the downside is you're playing less of other guys from other games. There's a lot of really good plays in 5 of these other 6 games, so you are sacrificing a bit when you really jump up and down on this game. But God forbid you get overtime or just another 317 point in regulation game like we got in that last one. You're not going to get that. This team isn't quite that fast relative to Houston and doesn't have such defensive studs as Westbrook and Harden and so on. But there's a very big upside there, and just people are too cheap. I mean, Robert Covington at $5,400, who comes in as my 4th favorite play on his team, is a really, really great play at that price. So yes, I'm super excited to play guys in this game. Teague, Covington, Vonleh, all AA rankings. Wiggins, because he's Andrew Wiggins, ends up with a B and an A. But again, the volume should be there. It cannot be overstated. It's rare that you're going to get a spot like this where both there's the huge usage free up of Karl Anthony Towns not being there, who's just a massive part of the offense. And then the matchup being so supreme. Guys priced in the 3s, the 4s, and the 5s. Yeah, some of these guys are going to do some real work on this team. So you do want to have some exposure to Minnesota. I'd have a lot of trouble getting away from it.
All right, we've had several people asking the question: how many in cash on FanDuel and DraftKings would you go up to for the T Wolves?
I'd be more inclined to do it in cash than in tournaments. In cash, you're saying that even if I play 4, if one of them is bad, probably the other 3 ended up good, and maybe all 4 get there. So I don't want to take the time now because we're 30 minutes from lock, and I'd have to individually look at it on both sites. But I will say 2 or 3 feels generically right in GPPs, even on a juicy slate like this. And in cash, if you had 4 of the players I named and expressed some affection for, I really doubt I would have an issue with it. But it would feel better for me to super stack it in cash than in GPPs because you are covering yourself. Where you're like, oh, I got the crappy Wiggins game and I played him in cash. It's like, yeah, but that probably means that, Vonleh and Teague, etc., got there for you. So I'd be happier playing 3. I probably wouldn't be too unhappy with 4.
All right. From the Wizards side, you'd mentioned that Bradley Beal is one of your 3 guys cresting over 55 fantasy points. He's definitely in the mix. Rui Hachimura is for me. I'm tepid with Isaiah Thomas. He'll probably play around 24, 25 minutes tonight, but we have so many other options here. He's going to be one of the forgotten guys, and we saw him get, 17 and 10 the last time he took the court. There is no backup point guard. Okay, Ishmael Smith.
There are only backup point guards.
Yeah, there are only backup point guards or guys that may be pressed into duty once they're healthy. Hi, Troy Brown Jr. We'll see what happens with you. But it's a short list of Wizards. Basically, I think there are 4 I can get to. So for me, that's making Bradley Beal a very exciting option here. So a lot of my eggs are riding in that basket. How would you approach the Wizard side of this?
Yeah, I think there is enough of a ceiling where I believe 5 players got up to an A in GPPs, but the only 2 who got there in cash were Thomas Bryant and Bradley Beal. It's a just fine spot for Thomas Bryant. There's an interesting question with those mid-price centers where you compare him to Valanciunas and a couple other guys in that range, and his price has appropriately come up. It's a fine spot for him as well. So Beal and Thomas Bryant. Beal, obviously a guy I'm not shocked if he gets 75 tonight. It really wouldn't surprise me that much. If he got less than 50, I would be disappointed. So I am happy spending up there. Fine with any amount of Bryant. Hachimura has gotten the time. Again, the price is starting to close out an upside. It's a giant slate. We expect a lot of guys who cost 4K, 5K to get up there and give us 30. So if you're throwing 6 and change at Rui Hachimura, you need him to get you 40 something, which he's very capable of. And this is a fine matchup for him, but his price is climbing relative to just sort of the inherent strength of his game. Past that, Isaiah Thomas, I think I was a C in cash and A in GPPs. Price a little better on FanDuel if memory serves. 4,800 on DK. I have him at 20 minutes. I think we can't be sure we get something like 24. Gorgie Jang is starting. Okay,
Oh, boy.
25 minutes to lock. Well, I assume he is the floor since he has basically been stapled to the pine. Again, we're not dealing with a lot of coach history here, and Karl-Anthony Towns doesn't sit a lot of games. So much of what I say, whereas frequently when guys are out, I'd like to think one of the things I try to do best for you guys is to tell you this is what's going to happen. There's a lot of guesswork here. My best guess would be that you have Gorgie Jang pick up a Gorgeous Dong. That's fine. That's one of my favorite nicknames. That you have Gorgie Jang play somewhere closer to 28 minutes or so. At that point, I think you get away from Jordan Bell almost entirely. He's 31 on DK. I don't mind if you have him in there, but I'd rather play Gorgie Jang. But Vonleh now at $4,200, we're looking at getting. I still think he gets more time. I'd still put Vonleh now at 20 to 22 minutes, but that's a really relevant change. So Gorgie Jang, a perfectly effective fantasy player, and what again is a remarkably good fantasy environment. I know on DraftKings he is power forward and center eligible at 3K flat. If you were dealing with a Scott Labissiere contingency, perfectly fine to just turn that into Gorgie Jang at this point. FanDuel, I gotta check and see what position. And it was a couple of years ago, dude played a whole lot of power forward, but I'm kind of curious where he is listed. He is $3,500 minimum at center on FanDuel. At that point, he's going to be your best FanDuel center play. You're fine to go there. You're still fine, in my opinion, to play minimum price Noah Vonleh at power forward. I would be concerned with Jordan Bell at this point. But pretty big fan on DraftKings. Even better news, by the way, for Jeff Teague, because you're going to get less shots almost certainly out of Gorgui Dieng than you would have gotten out of Noah Vonleh. He's going to stay inside more. It's going to facilitate more assists because they'll function a little more. Vonleh has a decent one-on-one game, but doesn't integrate that well into their offense from what I've seen so far. So, yeah, I'm big change would be I'd love Gorgeous Dieng on DK. I would avoid my Jordan Poole shares at this point. It's just too much uncertainty, and there's no reason to risk it on a slate this juicy. But 25 minutes before lock, that news coming out, I expect his ownership to still be somewhat nominal. So yeah, and take any further questions people have on that topic. But that's
How heavy would you go on Jang now that we're close to lock? There are so many other shiny objects. I would like to tag in Josh Engelman right now so I can go fix my player pool. But people are asking what 20-25%? Would you let it go?
That's about where he'll get. The closest approximation we can have is this is roughly the same differential that we had on Nerlens Noel news on Thursday, I think it was, where he got Adams got ruled out. He got named starting at like 6:26. So it was about 34 minutes before lock, and it was a superlative play, and he got to about 40 on FanDuel, about 44 on DraftKings. Now, there's much more great value today. And the news came out about 10 later. So I will guess that Gorgui Dieng normalizes I'll go like 24%. I'm fine with that number. I'm fine with less. I wouldn't want to overreact.
Okay.
Just because there is a lot of uncertainty here. There is a chance he plays 18 minutes. I don't have a lot of times I can hopefully, watching years and years of this crap, when something happens and Andre Drummond goes out with 20 minutes to go, I generally know what Dwayne Casey's going to do and what the backup roles are going to be for the guys on that team. Saunders, I have very little information about, and Karl Anthony Towns has sat exactly 2 games in his 5-year NBA career or what have you. So, I'm really grasping at straws here a bit more than normal, but yeah. So I would now rank those bigs in order of interest. Would now be pretty easy for me on DK, Dieng, Vonleh, Poole, Bell rather, and then I would try to end up being around the field, which I would think would be low to mid 20s. He's absolutely fine fantasy producer, can pick up some defensive stats. The game is really going to move. But makes me even a little more happy with, say, Wiggins and Covington and Teague additionally. So I don't think you need to kill yourself, but yeah, I would try to get myself in the 20s. He's minimum price. I'd be pretty surprised if he didn't play 20 minutes. At this point, I'd have to project him for something in this matchup that looks like, I'll say the average minutes I'll project him for would be like 26. There's a floor below that. You could get a few more. I don't think you get something like 35. So I'll project him at 26 minutes in this matchup. I'd have to project him for about that number of fantasy points. That's obviously really nice at the floor. So, if you decide I'm just going to lock him the hell in there, that's not the worst idea I've ever heard. But it's not just, factoring against the disappointment factor. It's also dealing with the fact that there are a lot of really compelling value plays at 3-4 and 3-6 and 3-5 and 3-8. And either they can simply get there a little bit more than Gorgie gets there, and you only get so many value spots. So hopefully that's good enough description to cover all the Scal versus Dieng in 100 lineups. That is really tough to answer off the cuff because I'd be moving a lot of pieces around, and the addition of Dieng and the tough Scal thing makes me like Scal even more if you can manage to find a way to get it the heck in there. But yeah, I imagine at this point I would have something like 30 Dieng in 100 lineups and something around 5 to 8 where I'm intentionally leaving a Scalabissiere slot open.
All right, let's keep moving on.
Is Markelle
Fultz is starting. How are you feeling about that?
I mean, the matchup is still really difficult, but it'll be a slightly worse matchup for me for Jamal Murray, so I'd be a hair less interested in there. Again, change the projection by half a point, but it would be relevant to me. Yeah, it'd have some fair amount of. I mean, at this point, you'd expect his minutes projection to climb from low to mid 20s to high 20s, where he gets 28, 29 minutes. He is incredibly cheap at 3,700, I think it is. So I like him quite a bit as a play. You're asking me to guess where the ownership comes in. I'm guessing he doesn't get much above like 12% in such a dreadful basketball game, which generally the internet community has been keeping a pretty good eye on. So I'm fine getting them there, though. I mean, you just based on minutes and price, you have to be pretty. I mean, another fine piece of value there. So, um, it's not a great matchup, but he's been active. He contributes in a lot of ways. I'd end up projecting him somewhere in the range of probably 27 minutes and 20 to 21 fantasy points, which still for 3,700 is just a fine number.
All right, we're getting questions fast and furious, so let's hit. I've used that phrase multiple times, but let's just finish up quickly here. Charlotte, Golden State Warriors, leading off with, we know Deangelo Russell may sit out tonight. Of 150, if you're feeling mediocre with your risk tolerance, how many would you put in on FanDuel where you cannot get out of that decision? That would be
He's 94.
Yeah, I think he's very expensive.
I'm not incredibly risk averse. I like playing QQ. I was talking, the other day about playing Nerlens Noel before the news came out. I was a big fan, things like that. But at what I consider to be a very real chance of a zero, and so many other good expensive shooting guards, including one of my favorite plays of the day, I think I would have zero at this point.
Okay.
There is certainly an absolutely massive upside. This game should be a track meet. Both teams running out, college teams. And then you have D-Russ out there who has been given the green light and projects to have a monster game. Clearly, there is some chance that he is roughly the highest scoring shooting guard, for example, on FanDuel. But that tag is really big. I don't think I need it tonight. Like, you're really hoping that he gets 70 and, still skunks on top of Booker and Beal and several other guys I like at shooting guard. So I think I would probably have zero. I don't think having some exposure is crazy. Knowing that his ownership will be, 2% on FanDuel, I think that's very interesting.
All right. If you're building one lineup on FanDuel, do you go with Drummond or do you go with Gorgie Jang?
I would play Drummond.
All right.
Okay, give me this. The quick answer to your question. Yeah, I would play. Yep.
I'm getting 40%. This is not me. I'm getting 40% Pascal Siakam. Oh, wait. Now I'm getting 50 on DK. Do talk me into it or out of it. I'm paraphrasing, but it's not me.
I'm fine with it. You're making a stand. It's a fine spot for him. His role in the team right now, his defensive necessity on the court. Like, you have a heightened foul trouble issue with, Giannis crashing in on him repeatedly. I would not be inclined immediately to do it, but it's a fine spot for him, and you're taking a stand. It wouldn't. Like, it's a risk tolerance issue. There's a number of ways the game could go wrong for Pascal Siakam. He projects absolutely fine as a player. It's not a great Lowry spot, which should add to his cachet. So, if that happened to me, I'd be like, oh, all right, I'll run it, and I would run that crap out there and hope it works out for you. So I would not try to talk you out of it. You are taking a stand. I wouldn't try to do that. I wouldn't be like, oh, sweet, let me make sure I have 50% Pascal Siakam tonight. But if you trust your projection system analyst, whatever the heck, and that's what it's giving you, get in there and do your thing.
All right, Charlotte, Golden State. Your thoughts? We still have one after this, and then some questions.
Yeah. So giving you the real quick version of this because we're on time. Yeah, there is a real chance for it. I am upset if I don't come in with some number of guys on Charlotte in my team. It is difficult to project exactly what's going to happen with this team at any given time. My favorite two players in GPPs for Charlotte, and again, I'd like to have one on this team, would probably be Dwayne Bacon or Cody Zeller. Cody Zeller feels weird at $6,400. It feels weird versus the other $7,000 centers. Again, the alluded to Valanciunas, a couple other guys, but this is a matchup against a healthier team with Draymond hanging around for a lot of time. We just saw Aaron Baines drop 50-something fantasy points on. Cody Zeller can do that. He's healthy. His time has looked good. I would be interested in having on a slate like this a very, very low owned Cody Zeller at $6,400 there. And then I think Bacon's playing time has been limited artificially by a couple of things. This price is really good at 4,300. Did all kinds of great stuff during the preseason. Some of which I do think carries over as far as his usage, his out of timeout plays, a number of things where I was excited for him. He hasn't produced as much as I'd like, but I'm a fan of $4,300 Bacon, who I have at like 29 minutes against this team. But yeah, Bacon, Graham, Bridges, Zeller, PJ Washington, who got priced to the heck high. But in this matchup, yeah, PJ Washington at 6,500, 6,700, whatever that number is. Even Malik Monk at 39, I think it is. But the two I'd be most excited to roll out in a lineup would be Cody Zeller. Probably in order: Zeller, Bacon, Rozier would come in third for me there. Graham, and then on down.
All right, we're getting more ownership. We're getting a mess here. Let's hit that final game real quick here. Let me call this up. Who the heck is going to be playing at center for Portland? Because we've got a guy that somehow I have never heard his name. And now I've forgotten it. But he was coming in at like a million point. Shit. Moses Brown.
Yeah.
What? How many points do you think Moses Brown is going to get? Because about half the projections.
Did we get Whiteside confirmed out? Oh wow. Okay, so I missed a couple of things here. So Hassan Whiteside is not going to play.
Deangelo Russell is out.
Oh my god. Okay, so Hassan Whiteside is also out, right?
Yes,
because I got conflicting information.
That was confirmed about 6 confirms ago. So
yeah, I somehow got that information wrong, and that obviously changes a whole lot of things. People asked. I presume the Scal or Jeng question came after that. So I have to circle back to that.
Scal's up to 50% for us right now.
Yep. At this point, I have to have Scal over Jeng. They again have 4 centers on the injury list at this point. So I would prioritize Scal over Jeng. At this point, I would probably have in 100 lineups. Yeah, somewhere around 50, 55 Scal feels right. Somewhere around 18 to 20 Gorgie Jeng feels correct. With Deangelo Russell out, I think it's a perfectly good idea to start your lineups with some combination of Scal, Jeng, Jordan Poole, who I think is the most immediate beneficiary. Nice pivot there is to Damian Lee, who I'd now have to project at somewhere around 30 minutes. I will try to power in a quick rankings upgrade. What do we have? 10 minutes? No, I will not bother trying to upgrade the rankings before lock, because between the time to do that and tweet it, it's just not going to look that great. But Eric Pascal would now get a really relevant boost for me for that team who needs someone to actually, do some of the scoring there. But yeah, Glenn Robinson would probably make it up to a B in GPPs. Alec Burks is risky, but $4,100, and it's going to take a shot for every minute he's on the court. So he certainly gets some interest now.
God, I hate my life.
You got a lot going on, my friend. You got a lot going
on. All right. So let's hit some questions. How does the Portland news affect Tolliver? And by the way, Tolliver and Vonleh are killing me because I keep thinking of them on the opposite teams, and they're both in play tonight. So.
Yeah, they're both in play.
Damn you for playing on a million teams.
How does it affect Tolliver? I mean, he's no longer a strong play. He was always limited, but just by nature of being a guy who does not always carry with him a massive amount of upside, put mildly. So, I would have very little Tolliver at this point. The minutes I would now project about 3 or 4 fewer. He should still get, a good bit of time. I'd still have him at, 26 minutes or something. So he's fine to play, but from a raw terms of upside, he's going to be behind Scal and Jeng pretty significantly.
Can you Rinpack? Sorry, I lost that one. There's a bunch my search function isn't gonna work. So we've got a bunch of $10 guys here on Yahoo. I'm just gonna go directly to Yahoo that we're looking at. And my
sure.
How can you rank some of their value? You guys want to throw out some names here? One second.
Sure.
Because we have a lot of them. All right,
Jeng, Scal, who else?
Sorting by value. So we have at 10, Markieff Morris, Jordan Poole, Isaiah Thomas, Eric Paschal, forget Robinson, Damian Lee, Alec Burks, Fultz, Scal, Tolliver, Galloway, Jang, Lehman, Bertans, everybody basically.
Drop the list in chat. Kai Bowman getting the start there. Also, by the way, I'd only have him at probably 21 or 22 minutes. Saw some time the other day, but this is a really bad Warriors team, so you don't want to go crazy here. I like Poole. I like Pascal. I like Damian Lee. I can see Kai Bowman working out. Willie Cauley-Stein is going to play 18 to 20 minutes, maybe like 22 in this situation. I'm not super excited to spend like 4,700 on him. Kai Bowman, I worry about the time, but there's enough guys out now. You maybe pick up 30 minutes of Kai Bowman. I think that can work out fine for you. Pascal should be able to pull into a double-double this year.
Right.
But if you could write down that list for me of guys at $10 or something, because I can't memorize 11 names, I could forget someone reading it back. But you're looking.
I'm going to put it in our chat that you and I have open.
Okay. I'll read it and rank it and read it. I'm going to try to do rotations in a quick minutes projection for everyone. Let me see if I can do this. At least get through Portland and Minnesota at this point.
All right.
6 minutes, so I have to finish this in 2 for it to be of any value to anyone. Disco.
Sorry, that's the best I could do on short notice here.
I understand. I'm going to give you my top 5. The top 5 guys on this list at $10 that would be interested. I'll even try to rank them for you. It's just a lot of memorizing here. Scal, Poole, Jang, Fultz. Last spot would be tough between Damian Lee and Markieff Morris. All right, so we haven't talked about Philadelphia. I want to reiterate. You could have made a lot of money in DFS a couple years ago where Joel Embiid played every game by simply playing guys not named Joel Embiid on days Joel Embiid was out. It's a perfect viable strategy because they played half their games with him and half their games without him. And so their prices are all determined based on Joel Embiid being out there, taking a massive amount of usage, taking 20 shots. When he went out, everybody, the Robert Covingtons and Ben Simmons, so on of the world, got boosted. It's a very similar situation today. I'm absolutely fine, and I'm a big fan of getting some pieces of Philadelphia into your lineup. I'm not super interested in Matisse Thybulle, whereas he's a brilliant defender. Those peripherals are going to come down. You're looking at the other game Embiid missed this year. He did play 24 minutes and had, I don't remember how many fantasy points, but it wasn't many. And I think 0 real points. That's a real possibility with him. And again, there are brilliant, wonderful amounts of value out there. I think playing Matisse Thybulle, maybe on FanDuel, where if he gets 11 stocks, you randomly spike some sort of insane upside. But on DK, I would have a lot of trouble getting there. But Simmons, Richardson, Horford, Tobias, all those guys are too cheap in a matchup I really like now that, I like having some exposure there. They all project very similarly to me relative to price. My preference barely is probably Harris, Simmons, Horford, Richardson, but no great degree of differentiation between those 4. Other guys I want to discuss that I haven't necessarily brought up yet. Let's move on. It'll come up in questions if they want. I've touched on my top 20 notes. So,
all right. Get back to the questions here. Another round of projections is up for everybody that is trying to scramble here. They want to know about who is it? Brown again for Portland. We didn't quite finish that thought.
Yeah, I'm looking at a rotation I'm projecting here. I have him playing strictly at the backup there and getting 16 minutes. I don't think you need it.
Okay. All right. Richardson or Bledsoe, price does not matter.
Bledsoe. If I have no 76ers, probably Richardson.
All right. Can you, on FanDuel, Drummond, Beal, and then who? Since money's not a thing. Tournaments.
In what context? Giannis, I guess?
Just whoever. Money's not a thing. They want whoever your next best play is, it sounds like.
Next best play. It's weird because I don't know what the question is asking. My next best play is probably Skal Labissiere. My next highest scoring player among those other two, the third in that triumvirate, is Giannis.
Do you prefer Poole or Brown from Detroit?
Poole pretty significantly. I like Brown from Detroit at ownership, but raw points with Deangelo Russell confirmed out. Poole is just a monster.
All right. Let's see. Since all the extra value is up, who is your on any site? Who is your favorite play after Drummond and Beal? It's same, and after Beal, same thing.
There's a lot of guys who would rank very similarly for me, from Devin Booker to Pascal Siakam to Kyle Lowry. Like, there's a lot of other guys I could see going at there, but no one immediately jumps out. And it's not like you're using that extra money to play for Jeff Teague. So Drummond, Beal. I'm trying to think of other, super expensive players now where price is less of an issue. Kyrie.
Would you play Dang and Skal on FanDuel in the same lineup?
Sure. They have nothing to do with each other. So if you're going to punt center, because Skal's a power forward, if you're going to punt center, I mean, they're unrelated. So sure, you can build a lineup with Dragon, Skal, and Kyrie, Beal, Simmons, Antetokounmpo, etc. Sure, that's a perfectly fine lineup they can get there. I imagine if I projected my best possible lineup on FanDuel, that is very possibly what would be in it. So, I mean, your question boils down to, is it okay to not play Andre Drummond? Yes, he's not a must play. And probably the second favorite center for me in tournaments would probably be Jang. After that would probably be Valanciunas if I had to move off him at center.
All right, we were 50 seconds out, so anything they hear isn't going to happen. I'm sorting my lineup so I can upload them. Any final thoughts before we do a little daddy likes?
I'm just scanning news at this point. I don't want to miss anything else because obviously we're getting quite a bit of breaking news here.
Is anything else not happened yet? Because it certainly doesn't feel that way.
Yeah, there's quite a bit going on here.
All right, let's see. I need 4 more lineups.
But yeah, you can certainly play Jang and Skal. I mean, your question basically boils down: is it okay to not play Drummond, or is it okay to play Jang? Because Jang and Skal have nothing to do with each other. Yeah, you can play Giannis. I mean, you can obviously roll out some ridiculous monsters at that point if you run those guys together.
All right, last question. I'm typing this into chat. Covington and Booker or Giannis and Dang?
Covington and Booker.
All right, that is going to close out the questions there. Holy hell.
It's a good show.
Smoke, but I think it's time for a cigarette because this was a freaking...
Still 15 seconds to me. I don't think we'll say anything useful that anyone will hear in that differential, but yeah, no, that was great. It should be great for us.
All right.
Yeah, I'm anxious to get rid of the bad taste from the last show, because I've had 6 shows this year, and there were 2 that were brilliant and people won 6 figures, and 3 that were solidly good, I think. But yeah, the last show on Thursday went sideways with well, largely it started when they went, Cam Reddish and Huerter and Hunter are all having their minutes limits raised, and then DeAndre Bembry played his most minutes of the year. I didn't see that happening, but
he was coming off the bench too. I mean, his game was...
Yeah, he always comes off the bench, but he played his normal game, and he just got out there and I had a very good game. But that was unfortunate because I think the analysis was good. Like, he was going to be really popular. He wasn't that cheap. He was like $4,700, and Cam Reddish, who was also very good, was 44, and Kevin Huerter was 34, and I like Bembry more than, say, Huerter as a player, but I had Huerter at 25 minutes and Bembry at 26 minutes, so that wasn't a tough one for me at lower ownership and saving, more than $1,000, but didn't work out that time. But yeah.
All right, we're just waiting for the DK database to flip over here.
Yeah, sorry for getting. Apparently, Skal. I missed the Skal is started, not the Skal starting, but the Whiteside is out. Lock news in that flurry that came in there. So I thought we were still talking about a a Scal hypothetical when I answered the first Scal or Jeng question. So it doesn't happen often, but somehow I dodged that one bit of news for longer than I would have liked to.
Well, we're on our second Saturday, and this certainly feels like March NBA news.
Yeah, it's. I mean, we knew a lot of that was up in the air, but yeah, I'm excited because this. All right, so this ownership is
I've got the
Nets.
DK $8 up.
It's Nets, Pistons, and Magic Nuggets. That's it. Am I right? It's just the two games.
Hang on. It is, yes, just the two games. Milwaukee doesn't start till 8 o'clock.
All right, let's take a shot at it.
Who is your guess that at the most owned player? That's correct because you're going to get it. What is their percentage?
Yeah, Andre Drummond. That's what I'm Andre Drummond here. All the late value is going to boost him even a little bit more. 45%.
I'm sorry, it's 48, Eddie.
I'm terrible.
Who is number 2, 3, and 4?
Yeah, I have no damn clue. I'm guessing the ownership here on Detroit is brutal. All right, so let's think of that team for a second, because the Magic and the Nuggets, I suspect, are not going to be in the top 6 or 7 spots at least. So it's going to be a Piston or a Net. All right, number 2 should be Markieff. I feel good about that.
You are correct.
Okay, now I have no idea about anything. The next highest Piston, people aren't going to Bruce, and people aren't really going to Langston within it. The next highest Piston is probably Luke Kennard, but I expect him to be well down. I don't think people are going to be excited to play 5,000 for Kennard. So going down to like 10%, but Luke Kennard.
16%, but yes, it is
Really?
Luke. Markieff is at 17.
Really? I would have thought more. I would have thought like 25 Markieff and 10 Luke or something. So tip of the cap to the internet community. I mean, the Kennard should have a big number. Okay, so he said 17 Markieff, 16 for Luke. Wow, that's incredibly close.
And there's a player in between them.
Not on the Pistons though.
No. And in the chat, I'm dropping the free Yahoo article there for the $250,000 baller. Enjoy.
It's going to be one of the Nets. It's still not going to be anyone from the other game. I don't think you get that high on Jokic or Murray or any of those guys. I'll go with Kyrie.
Correct.
Okay, but that's in the 10-15 range, you're saying?
That is in the 6. He's 6. Markieff 17, Kyrie 16, Luke Kennard 15.9.
Nice. All right, so you got a couple other guys to come here. You have Jared Allen, who's going to get whatever 5-10% ownership because of playing 30 minutes in the last game, and people thinking that's a new way of. Oh, Markelle Fultz, I didn't mention. Markelle Fultz has to have a number now. They announced him as starting. I would have thought like 10, 12%.
10%.
10%. Okay. Other than that, guys on those teams to whom I expect people like. People in that game, I really don't know. After Fultz, you'll have 5 to 10% Jokic, 8, 10, 12% Jamal Murray. Really excited to see what $4,600 Paul Millsap is.
Paul Millsap 2.47.
Yeah, that's pretty exciting for me.
Right.
Yeah, I feel good.
Reminder, everybody, we've got the super draft. If you deposit up to $100, they will, or if you deposit initially $100, they will give you $20. That's available for immediate use. They've had massive overlay every single week of the NFL season, and they continue to do that into NBA. That is their marketing tool. Reminder that it is all about the multipliers. We do have projections for them, so check that out. We will be doing some more content and shows or advice for them coming up here, but that is our sponsor for Saturday's Live Before Lock. Let's see. Jordan Bone.
Yeah, they might have. I don't know if they. I believe he was with their G League team when their season started yesterday, so they may have called him up for this game, but I don't know specifically if they did. If they said it, I didn't see it.
All right, so we've got Blake Griffin, 0.01. You played yourself.
Hey, you played yourself.
Will Barton, 0.04. You also played yourself.
People are talking about TJ Leaf. Was he like chalky yesterday? People played TJ Leaf?
I know Adam had like 40%. So
see, you put me in an awkward spot here because I was going to absolutely savage that as any reasonable idea to do. But now you said Adam did it, and so I'll just
no, he was like, no, I talked to him as it was falling apart because we were doing the podcast, and he goes, well, that was in the realm of outcomes. So
yeah, it's he's not good. He's there's minutes. The opportunity matchup is obviously great. I guess Sabonis could have played a butt ton at the 5, and he could have ended up playing a ton at the 4. But
yeah. And his point was, he goes, it got me everything else I wanted. He said I was willing to accept the risk.
Yeah, and I'll also say without my knowledge of the other value available on that slate, I'm to some degree talking out of my ass because obviously I wasn't on yesterday. I did not do a big.
Indeed. All right. Well, we are gonna duck on out of here because
for those of you who are members, I will hang out in the premium Slack chat until at least 8 p.m. to get most of these other games underway. Maybe make it all the way to the 8:30 and handle some questions because a lot of moving pieces and didn't quite get to everything I wanted on the show, which happens when 8 pieces of news break in the last 20 minutes.
Yeah. Wow. That was a shocker. Hey, maybe we should just start at 90 minutes before, and that's our default time, Eddie. So there we go. We do have a show tomorrow. Me and you will have to see when. I think that'll probably be 5 o'clock. I think everybody's going to use 6. Yep, 6 o'clock for their starting times. Do not forget, it is daylight savings. We get to fall back, so an extra hour for everybody tonight. You have tomorrow morning at 9:45. We have the final NFL show. That is going to be Alex, Ben Rossa, and Alafi D. And then, of course, we have I believe we're debuting our new show, our injury show. That's going to be between that and Live Before Lock. And Live Before Lock, of course, has Chris Baggs and Josh Engelman. So definitely check all that out. And then NBA Live Before Lock, me and Fast Eddie. You'll get to hear plenty of Fast Eddie. I want to say it's 5 games tomorrow night, Eddie.
That sounds, I believe that's the number I had in my head. I think that's right. Are you dead if you faded Drummond for Jang if you're in cash? No, of course not. Like, you spent that money on other, like, if you faded Drummond for Jang and left $7,000 on the table, yeah, I think you're in trouble if you're needing him to hold up there. But you're hoping Drummond gives you only 45, which is, certainly in the realm of possible outcomes here. And Jang could get you 30 and you're crushing the field. But if Jang has a, poor performance and Drummond gives you 60, yeah, you're going to be in trouble if you cede 40 points at the position. But not dead. Like, if you spent that money on whatever Beal and Kyrie, they can certainly cover you.
All right, last question before we get on out of here. This is for Premium Chat. They're asking, this is games that have not yet started. So Jordan Poole and Pascal Siakam or Wiggins and Horford, here's the wrinkle. It's on Yahoo, Eddie. I would take the former, personally.
I would also take the former.
All right.
Especially on Yahoo. Yahoo scoring would actually make that slightly larger difference. What do I think about Vonleh? Again, I'm still fine playing Vonleh. I think your downside is that he gets his standard role, which isn't horribly out of play. I have him well behind Scal at this point. I would have him behind a couple of other guys, but Vonleh, especially FanDuel, if you ended up with that at the floor, or 36 maybe it was, but at 35, 36 was fine. DK, where he's 4,200, I wouldn't be really comfortable with it until I got some news that things were necessarily going to break his way.
Here's my percentages. Bradley Beal. You want to guess?
60.
80.
Yeah, there you go. Ride
I
with
didn't
me.
have time to fix things. This is what happens when you're on a show. So 80 for Beal, 70 for Scal, 50 for Teague, 47 for Simmons. Josh Richardson, one of your favorites. He's coming in there at 47. Damian Leaf, 41. Giannis Antetokounmpo, 33. Drummond, 33. Zhang, 27. Markieff Morris, woohoo! Dan Strafford, this is for you, 25. Thomas Bryant, 25. Luke Kennard, 25. Pascal Siakam, 20. Andrew Wiggins, 20. Moses, never heard of you, Brown, 19.
Is that FanDuel or something?
These are DK. I was doing game stacks, so I was able to do 3 quick crunches, Eddie. That was it.
Yeah, I mean,
sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. It's $150. What else?
Yeah. I mean, they need to play bigs, and they have really a bigs they want to put on the court. Tolliver, Scal, and Hazonia, who they will play at the 4 in certain circumstances. So, yeah, maybe you get
Now
24 minutes of
the
Moses
good thing
Brown.
is I did, and here's just quick strategy as we wind it down. I did a third no game stacked. I did a third Washington Minnesota, and I just said 4 from that game. So if it put anything else in, that's fine. And then I did 4 from 2 and 2 from the late game. So I have wiggle room. I can go in and fix Brown and change it on those because that's going to be from the game.
Someone said Damian Lee won't be appropriately owned. I think that's completely the case. And as we go through the evening, keep a look at the other ownership on the value for the purpose of figuring out roughly how much we have left, because everyone's going to play roughly the same, 1.8 value plays and whatever. So you can sort of reverse engineer how much the value is owned. So we know that, okay, Markieff took up, 17% of a spot, and there was this much Lillard, and so then that's going to help you, have a better idea how much you're going to get on later guys like Jordan Poole and Damian Lee, who I really am a big fan of at this point at his price. So swapping in there works for me.
All right, last
one.
one.
Andy's not starting.
Lowry or Bledsoe? No side, but
well, raw points, I'm going to take Lowry, but $2,200, I'm probably a slightly bigger fan of playing Bledsoe tonight, which just feels weird to say, but I'm fine with both of those plays. But Bledsoe's under 6K, Lowry's over 8. It's hard to apples and oranges.
All right, and shout out to Moses Guthrie because he's given us a shout out. He says, "Now that the storm is settled, I want to thank you guys for the Cheryl Teagues references earlier."
Yeah, that see-through swimsuit thing with
the Bo Derek poster.
The beach one. Yeah, that's formative posters for men of our age.
Bo Derek in 10. Interesting.
Yeah, Dudley Moore.
But Heather Locklear. Those were the names I did not get to say while we were on air. So
fine choice to call.
Halle Berry, right there. I think she's
a good-looking woman.
All right, gamers, with that, we are going to get on out of here. You can follow Eddie at FastEddieFair. I am at EMACDFS over on Twitter. And, of course, it is Awesemo_COM. With that,
back tomorrow.
Good luck.